Welcome to this episode of The Balanced Mind, where we look at the meeting of the external world with our internal world and how that can affect our outcomes. Today, we're going to be talking about how to inspire others in this episode. And welcome, Richard. Are we all set for this? I'm
Hi,
sure
Kim.
we are.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be
Excellent.
a good conversation.
It is. And interestingly, just before we started this, you were talking about something you were doing recently, which was very relevant to this topic that has come up. And so I think we should start there, if that's okay with you. You were leading a CPD, was it a webinar, I think you said?
Yeah.
And it was about how to work with your teams, but a big part of that is about inspiring them. So do tell us more.
Yes, it's a conversation that I have a lot at the moment with firm leaders looking for their team to step up is the phrase.
Mm.
And a lot of it comes from, on the one hand, the desire and the need to change, and on the other hand, the lack of resources and the difficulty in recruiting people. Because,
Mm.
traditionally, if accountants wanted to grow their firm or if they wanted to do something more, then they'd go out and recruit someone to do it and they'd have more
Mm.
chargeable hours. And of course, that isn't a solution that is readily available today because the recruitment market is so hard. But also because we talk a lot about culture and what have you, and it's not just about finding bodies, it's about finding the right people. And that's a challenge. So wanting to move your firm forward, wanting to grow your firm, but realizing that you can't do it on your own, the natural thing is that they then look to their team and go, "Come on, then, guys, I need you to step up," and then they wonder why that doesn't happen. So the
Yeah.
idea was very much to do this webinar for firm owners in the UK and in Ireland, just to talk about how do you do it? How do you get your team to step up? And in fact, to start from the basics, what on earth do we mean by stepping up?
I mean,
Um,
that's probably a good place to start, actually, isn't it? What do we mean by stepping up?
well, I think for most firm leaders, it's how do I get my team to do things that currently I'm doing, or I feel like we should be doing, and I don't have the time to do it. So I talked about closing the gap between essentially the leadership of the business and the management of the business, and recognizing first of all that there is a difference between the two, or there
Mm.
should be a difference between the two, and also recognizing that's not just you don't close that gap just by turning to your team and go come on guys let's do this together, but by first of all looking at you as is always the case with these, looking inwards, looking at yourself, looking at
Yeah.
your role as a leader.
Mm.
What, for instance, one of the reasons why teams struggle to step up is because there's no gap for them to step into, because the person who's supposed to be the lead in the business is there filling the holes and
A good point.
trying to micromanage the business and trying to control all of the client
Mm.
relationships and determine how every email should be written, all the rest of it. Well, there's no gap for people to walk into it if that's the case. So the first thing is getting them to recognize, almost be prepared to step back, which is quite hard. If you're most of us who run our own businesses are control freaks to at least some extent. So the thought of letting somebody else take some decisions is like, oh, can I do this?
Yes.
So there's that bit about getting them to step backwards first of all, and then it's about how do you then create the confidence in the team to then step into the gap that's been created. And there's lots and lots of things around that.
Mm.
But one of the key parts to it is this issue of um, leading by example. Because if you want somebody else to do something that you're currently doing, or you want them to do it in a certain way, then you've got to give them more than just a checklist or a set of rules. Yeah, particularly on this wider concept of where we want teams to engage more with the plan of the business. We want them to engage more with clients. We want them to take on board more responsibility. They're quite typical features of wanting people to step up.
Yeah.
So it's something that you can't just define by a checklist, and therefore you've got to help them to understand what it is you're talking about. What sort of level are we talking about? What do we mean by engagement? What sort of style should they be bringing to it? What sort of levels of commitment are required? What sort of energy should they be bringing to it? And of course, that you're going to be the person who they're going to look to, because you're the
Mm.
person who previously has sort of told them how to do everything. So now when you created that space and you can't just go, right, go and play, you've got to give them that guidance, in how you behave, how you talk, how you do, how you interact with them. So, as is often the case, if we're looking to change things within the firm, that change, first of all, has to start with the person at the top,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
how they, if they are stressed out and frustrated and beaten down and there's not a smile on the face and all the rest of it, well, that's sort of how your team are going to be. So if you want the team to change, you start with yourself.
I love that. I'm just going to make that just a little pause because that's so powerful. When you're talking about leading by example, that's not the example you want because that will just replicate through the whole business, won't it? I
It will.
agree.
I think the challenge then comes, once we start talking about inspiring others, then we seem to think that we have to be some sort of inspirational person ourselves. Yeah, we
Mm,
we we look at Martin Luther King and Gandhi and all the and we look at great successful business people and we go, well, I'm not them. That
yeah.
I'm just me, and I know all my faults and all my failings. So how can I inspire others? But actually, you don't have to be inspirational to inspire others. What you do need to do is to have that clarity of direction as much as anything else. Yeah, you've got to know what you're doing and what you're trying to do. And then if you're then doing that in the best way that you can, your team are going to follow that as an example. So it's you don't
Yeah.
have to be a great peacemaker or a great economist or a great anything. You
Mm.
just need to say, look, this is the route that we're following, and this is how I'm following it, and lead the way.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was running a webinar yesterday or earlier this week on overwhelm and how to bust it. And I was talking in there about believing in yourself and trusting yourself, loving yourself, and feeling safe being you. The four key principles that I like my clients to take on board when they work with me. But what I was in essence saying was that if you can behave like that and become that, and you are it, what happens is other people will just pick that up. And that doesn't mean you're being inspiring. It just means that you're stepping into being you. And what you do is you give permission for others to step in to them as they are. So it doesn't mean to say you'll never make mistakes. Of course it doesn't. Life and its challenges will always be there. But I think the more that we can show that we are accepting of them being themselves because we're doing it ourselves as well, that is the lead by example for me.
Yeah, I think we sort of we can dilute leading by example, and dilute being inspirational without it actually losing the impact. It doesn't have to be this great statement or this great person. We have a
Mm,
post lady here in our town who is a lovely, lovely lady. Always got a smile on her face, always bags of energy. Yeah, she's one. Will always knock on the door and have a quick conversation. All this, but she's just, she reminds you what a community is all about, really. But every Friday, she will dress up for charity and she wears some weird and wonderful stuff. If you see a massive colour coming down the road, you know you've got some letters and parcels on the way. And when she doesn't, if Friday happens to be her day off, she still goes into town onto the market street and dresses there, dressed up, and she does it to raise funds for charity. In any week, the amount of just a pickup that you get from seeing her or from just having a quick chat on the doorstep, it can lift your mood. That to me is inspiration. There's someone who just for 2 minutes in a day makes you think, yeah, I could do better than this. I can be a bit more energetic today. I can be a bit more positive today. I can put a smile on my face. I can talk to that person who maybe I've been trying to avoid. Just that injection of energy that she brings, I find inspirational. And I know talking to many other people in town, they're exactly the same. I don't know what we'll do when we lose her. But it's that to me, that's inspirational. It's when you can lift somebody up to go to do better, and to get that out of
yeah.
them. I think that's when we talk to firms about leading by example, being an inspiration, not just to your team, but to your clients as well, then I think that's what I'm talking about here. Not doing anything, not being something that you're not.
No,
We
definitely not.
talk a lot about, being almost like the best version of yourself. I talk about being you on a good day, basically, but every day, and that's what
Mm,
she's like. I've never seen her. It can be throwing it down with rain, or she can be up to her neck in snow, but she's still doing it. And it's like,
mm.
I don't know how you do that. And when she complains about the weather, she complains with a big grin on her face, and look at me drenched like a rat. That sort of approach to it, and that's inspirational. That interaction with her pushes you to do better. And that's when we're talking to firm leaders and when we're talking to managers about their teams, it's that, look, you've not got to be Martin Luther King. Just be the best version of yourself. If you want to pick others up, then you need to pick yourself up first of all.
Yeah, no, that sounds perfect example. I was just trying to think as you were talking there, who's inspired me, particularly in work, somebody I've looked to be like them, to, as you say, do better. And there's been a few actually that I've looked at. I remember working with one lady who's now a long-time friend. Well, actually, it's two of them. One of them was a training and development manager, amazing lady, Jo Hughes, who, for me, inspired me to realize there was more that I could do. Back in the day, I didn't really believe in myself, so she was a bit of a trigger for me. And another lady was, I don't know what her role was, some sort of finance manager or whatever, but I reported into her. And I just loved her people-centered approach. She was very much an accountant, but she had a heart that went with it. And it was probably the first person I really saw in that role. I mean, I've seen others, definitely, but she was very inspiring. She came in, she brought a new energy into what was actually quite stale. I hadn't been in the role very long myself, and she just brought something else to it. And it was that je ne sais quoi you talk about, that energy that's
Yeah.
lurking around them that just said, yeah, I want to be like you. She was a real breath of fresh air. And then there was a gentleman when I was having a real challenge. He came in, the program was going to, hell in a handbasket, quite frankly. And he just brought some common sense and some, real calm to what was actually chaotic. And it
Mm.
was inspiring in as much as that he conducted himself in a way that was, everybody's doing their best. It's okay. Let's just see what we can do. Let's have a look at this. Let's look in more in what's going on. And he listened. Oh boy, did he listen. Well, to me anyway. Giving it
It's
some.
interest. It is interesting that we're not necessarily inspired by results. We're inspired by
No.
behavior as much as anything else. I mean,
Yes.
within the context of the profession, I can think of many, many people over the years who've positively influenced me and who maybe at the time I didn't realize I was inspired by them, but afterwards I understand that I was. And I
Mm,
think that, for me, within the accounting, within the bookkeeping profession, it's people who first and foremost have a passion for what they do. They are passionate about it, they're energetic about it. I can watch any TV program about any subject if the person who's presenting it is passionate about what they do. I'm not a fisherman at all, but I can watch guys fishing all day long if they love it and they're passionate about it. So that is a key component for me. And then they have a clarity about what they do. So it's clear that they understand what they're doing and they can communicate that to others.
mm,
And then I think the third element of that is that they have time. They make time for others. They are as busy as the rest of us, but they still have the time to go, okay, let's sit down and look at this for 5 minutes. It's that, you said the word, it's that calmness that they bring. Maybe it's got a lot to do with a profession that is driven by deadlines and time is the resource, and we're all very aware of it. But it's the swan, isn't it? They seem to be able to glide through it, and that I find that inspires me because I'm like, well, if they can do it, and they're just a normal person like me, then I can do
mm,
that. And but also it then it's always provided me with, when we had our own businesses, when I was a manager before that, when I was a partner before that, it was almost like, this is my roadmap. This is how I'm going to try and work with others. If I'm
mm,
flapping around, I can expect other people to flap around. If I'm calm, if I know what I'm doing, if I know what I'm doing, if I am able to communicate. If I can't communicate, that means I don't really know what I'm doing, so I need to go back to that again. But it's that,
Yeah.
let me look at myself first of all, and let me get myself in order, and then make sure that I stay on top of things because others will then follow that. And that's how it seems to work.
Mm.
It's not, I wouldn't define myself as an inspirational person in the slightest, but that's not the point. If I can engage others and if I can get others to step up, which I can, then I think it comes through those sort of three key elements to it. Um,
Yeah. And that's interesting then. So you said you didn't realize at the time that these people were being inspirational, but you did afterwards. So what was that? What were they doing? Can you recall? Was it the way they spoke? I mean, you said calmness, and yeah, I think that's very true. But what's going through my head? Muddled thinking here. That's really good for a podcast, but bear with me, callers. Um, what's going through my head is almost it's 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 something that you possibly saw that you wanted to do. So is that what was happening for you? You saw something in them that you wanted to be?
um, Maybe. I think at the time, and probably the reason why I didn't realize at the time, because at the time, generally, they were fixing things for me. I don't mean doing stuff for me, but they were providing leadership. Yeah, and that's
Right.
what resonated. So invariably, when the team are turning to you, it's they're turning to you because they need guidance or they need clarity on what's expected of them. They've got a problem that needs solving. They need the shoulders crying sometimes. They need picking up in some way. Generally, they'll turn to you starting from a negative situation. And if you just
Mm,
reflect that back at them, then that doesn't go anywhere. If you're as stressed as that,
okay.
you may well be as stressed as them, as frustrated as them. And I think that's what inspires me after when I realize actually that they must be, that guy's got a lot going on. When I was working in the Big Four, for instance, and some of the partners there who are dealing with mega clients and have got the whole demands of a Big Four operation to deal with, but had the time to sit down with a relatively junior manager and go, okay, let's just talk through this. Because I'm thinking,
Mm.
hang on, I had a senior come to me half an hour ago, and I was like, I've got time for that now. I'm flapping around, and yet this guy's got time to just sit. Right, okay, I get it. It's that leadership coming out, and then when you see them do this time and time again, that's when you go. That's when you are inspired by the way that they work,
Yeah.
inspired to go, that's the model I need to be following here because that is working for me. And therefore, think about it, Richard, don't be stupid. If I want it to work for my team, I need to be doing something similar. And you
Mm.
felt it filters down. And I think that's this thing about being inspirational, leading by example. I think it filters down. We try to get our teams to develop by pulling them up. And actually, it's easier to go, okay, well, I'll just show them. I'll do what I do, the best. I'll make
Yes.
sure that they understand the vision, they understand the model, they see that I'm applying to it, they see how I deal with difficult situations and stressful situations, how I make decisions. And they're a bright team and they're a smart team, otherwise, why am I employing them? So they will work it out. They'll learn from that.
I love that. This idea. So it's almost that going back to that lead by example, isn't it, really? But it's something I'm reading in a book by Tony Robbins, can't remember what it's called. Um, can't see it. Yes, I can. Unlimited power. And he talks about modeling. And what you're wanting to do is model the best you so that others can see how it works in action. So you're showing there's a better way, not how to. It's not the how to. It's just a better way of managing you, isn't it? Because that's what it's about. And interestingly, do I remember this? Inspire is about breathing, creating space. So if you're breathing in and creating space within yourself, you can do that for other people as well. So yeah, that's interesting. I think I went off a tangent there, but all good stuff. Leading by example and
But
creating that vision, which we talked about in I think was it the last podcast that went out, but
yeah. And
yeah.
the thing about it is as well that we're not the last thing we're trying to do here is create mini me's. That doesn't
No, it's
move me
not
forward
that.
at all. What we're trying to do is almost to create this environment that they're learning from, that they can then bring their own interpretation of that into it. So, if you can show that, remaining calm, for instance, is something that makes things more effective, makes things more efficient, they then can develop their own version of remaining calm.
Yeah.
That now, the vision is important because that underlies all of this, and the vision underlines, first of all, what model are we trying to work to here, what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it. They can't shape anything if they don't understand those. But also the culture of the business is so important because
Mm.
I'm talking here about a business, an accounting firm that wants to look like a swan, that wants to look like it's gliding through and really successful and keeping everything calm. That other people may have a totally different business model. They might want a business that is, loud and brash and okay, there's no right or wrong in this,
You know.
but the team need to understand which one it is. The team need to understand. I do a session with firms where I ask them to say what style of music do they think they are? What color do they think they are? If they're picking out
Yes.
of what color would they pick out? All those sort of things. And then why? And then what style of music would you like to be? And quite often they'll say, well, when you say what style of music are you, and they'll go, oh, it's just chaos. It's just, we're just like some mad contemporary jazz. And what do you want to be? Oh, I want to be a classic piece of music that's just, okay, what do we need to do? So it's that sort of thing where we get the team to understand, what are we trying to be here? It's moving them away from, we're not a sausage factory. We're not just here to do production, just here to get sets of accounts out the door. There's more to us than that. In most cases, some
Yeah.
firms, that's what they want to be, and that's fine. But we're talking here about, you don't need to inspire in a sausage factory. But what we do need to do is inspire. Where we're a people-based business, we do need to inspire. And so to inspire, we need to show them what that means. And we need to, both in terms of the vision, the values, the culture, but
Mm.
also in terms of how we interpret that, because that will then give them that guidance to interpret it.
Yeah. So when you were doing this webinar the other day, did what sort of questions did you get asked? Only the one that's what if you can't inspire someone is one of the questions I've got going through my head. How do you then deal with that? I guess because it's unique, isn't it? Everybody's inspired by different things. And even as I'm talking, I'm just about to try and answer it, but I'll give you the opportunity first because I've asked you the question.
Well, you made that point earlier about being comfortable with yourself.
Yes.
And I think that is all you can be. And it's not an easy thing to do, is it? But it's all you
Yeah.
can be, because other people will then decide whether they are inspired by that or not. I don't think we can set out to inspire somebody. I think we can set out to be the best version of ourselves and be comfortable with ourselves. And then the rest of the
Mm.
world can decide whether they like that or not, and whether they're inspired by that or not. And that's one of the things that, as accountants and bookkeepers in particular, we've got to get over. We're not here to be everybody's accountant, everybody's best friend. We're not here for everyone to love
No.
us. We want the right people to engage with us. And so if we are the best version of ourselves, some people will take that as a great lead and other people won't. And that's absolutely fine. The question that came up several times in the week was, but we're really, really busy. How do we change any of this when we're
Yes.
really, really busy? We don't have time to lift our heads up. And that's a practicality, because my answer every time was, A, I expect you to be, because we're not firms where we can afford to have people sitting around doing nothing. And B, the reality is that you are always going to be busy. It's that sort of job. You know, what you're actually saying is, I don't feel in control. It's not about being busy. It's about not that sense of not being in control and all
Yeah.
of the frustrations that come with it. So, hey, that's the reality of the situation. You've got to make a decision at the outset. Are we going to do this or not?
Mm.
It's that start, because you're on that hamster wheel. And I said, the fact that you're on here, I think it was about an hour long webinar. The fact that you're on this webinar is that you've taken an hour out of your day to go, I need to focus on this. So, hey, you can do it because you're doing it right now. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing that this is, everything we do in a working day is about priorities. And if you want to be the best version of yourself, if you see that's really important, you prioritize that. If you want your team to step up and you want to work them to step up, you prioritize that. you're never going to have a gap in the working week when you can all sit around and go, oh, shall we do that now? Because we've got nothing else to do. That just doesn't happen.
No, no, it is a priority. It's what's important to you, isn't it?
Very
Definitely.
much so.
Yeah. So if somebody isn't being inspired to do what you'd like them to do, I guess that's going to that's a conversation to have, is what was going through my head when I was talking earlier. If somebody's not performing the way you want them to or whatever, you would have a conversation. If they're not being inspired by the goal, the mission, the vision, what you're doing, I'm guessing that's just a conversation to understand what's not landing. Is that right?
And yeah, I think it's a number of conversations along that route, but ultimately it's their call whether they're in the right place or not.
Mm,
Because yeah, part of one of the reasons why the vision is so important is because this is what we're doing. Whether you agree with it or not, this is the vision for the business. This is what we're
mm,
doing. So you can work that one out for yourself. You either get
yeah.
on board. It's a classic thing with the train destination, isn't it? Yeah, this train's going from there to there. You can get on board or not. It's your call, but the train's going from A to B.
Yes.
Yeah. If you don't want to go to B, you're best not getting on this train. And if you've got on the rest train, you're best getting off at the next stop because you're going
Yeah.
to where you want. I think we've got to be grown up about that. Yeah, I talk about the accountants who are inspirational, which is exactly what we're talking about here. In other words, the accountants who want to change things, who want to make them change things for the better for their clients, for themselves, for their team.
Yes.
We've got the accountants who are aspirational, who want to be the best version of themselves. They want to be a really good accountant, a really good tax manager, a really good admin manager, whatever it may be. And then you've got these who are just doing it as a job. And it may be that there's no criticism there because you're asking them to do 9 to 5 and they're doing 9 to 5 and they're working hard during those hours and they're churning things
Mm,
out. But if you're looking to change all of that, they're the ones who are going to have to make a decision about whether they are then going to change that approach or whether they're going to find another firm where they can work more that sort of style.
mm,
That's part, yeah. If your firm is going to change, there will be casualties, for want of a better word, you know, because
yeah.
if the people who are at your firm today are comfortable with your firm today. If you want your firm to be something different tomorrow, you're asking them some questions, and some will have a different answer to it. That's the nature of it. It's not a massive thing. I talk to firms about you probably, in my experience, you lose about 1 in 12, and it's usually the one you want to lose. So,
Yeah.
but you don't have to
Okay.
sack them; they work it out.
They work it out. I love it. So as we come to the end of this episode, I'm sure there is plenty more we could have covered, but we only have the half an hour. Um, I think I got from this is it's about lifting others up to do better. I like that as a statement, to be fair. What would be the one thing you'd like to leave our listeners with that you've covered today?
I think it's this leadership point again, and I know I'm annoying when I always do this, but if we
Lads.
want our team to change,
Mm,
invariably we're going to have to look at ourselves first of all and make the changes that we think are necessary to us. We have
yeah,
to be that leader. I talked earlier about that person who has that clarity, that person who knows what they're doing, that person who has time and calmness. That's we need to look at that first of all because that
wonderful.
we're just so much easier to follow if we're that sort of person.
Yeah, just being ourselves,
Yeah,
basically, and pe people
yeah,
either be inspired by you or not,
yeah. You can
basically.
you can scream your head off in the car going home.
Mm,
Do it as that's different.
yeah, definitely. Oh, well, Richard, that was a great conversation again. Thank you very much. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Next time, we're going to be talking about addressing the fear of failure, one of the biggest things that can hold people back. Probably the only thing that really holds us back, that underlying fear. So do tune in next time. We'd love to have a conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.